Hello, everyone. This is episode 51 of the Inventive Marketing Club. We're here every Friday so we can all build a better marketing strategy. Now, on this session, we are doing a grab bag of questions that we've either had from clients recently or we've collected from various different places. So a lot of questions we often get asked. And we're just going to run through them. We've picked a few that we want to talk about and we'll see how the time goes, really. So Claire and I are going to do this together. Do you want to say hello, Claire?
Hi, Ben.
How are you doing first? I know I always ask you, but I know you've been doing quite a bit. You've been preparing your veg beds, haven't you?
Yes, no, I was pretty busy over the last few nights putting in my runner beans and wanch too. So hopefully they'll grow and not get eaten by the sort of mountain of snails they seem to have out there.
Have you got any potatoes on the go?
No, I didn't do potatoes. I was going to. I was a bit slow, but they're sort of. I always think I'd do new potatoes, but sort of regular ones you can sort of buy from a farmer quite easily. So
I know that's the thing. It is lovely to see them, and it's great just to pick them out. And it's like little nuggets of gold on the plant, all under there. I love it. I love harvesting them. We've got loads actually. We've got like earlies, mids, lates. Lou's like used all these new beds I've put out there, and she's filling them full of potatoes. So we'll be overrun with them.
Well, I was given a really lovely new strain of raspberries that come as a bush rather than canes. So it's sort of in a pot. So we're hoping that will take off because we really like jam making. So raspberry jam this year, fingers crossed.
Oh, that's nice. I do love a bit of jam. I was into marmalade myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do like that. What is coming up in the rest of this month? Because we've got a few good things planned.
So next week we have Tim Nash joining us to talk about website security. And then at the end of the month, we have... Is
that Clare?
Clare, yes, fellow Clare, Womesley Moss joining us to talk about greener marketing, which I'm really excited about, seeing as I've gone all green fingered this month.
Yeah, it'd be perfect. And yeah, we had to swatch around Tim because he was going to be on today's session. So he's now on next week instead. So we just brought the grab bag forward. So should we get started? Got a load of different questions here. We've got lots of different topics. Should we go for social media first or something else? You pick, Claire, you choose, and then we'll go through it.
Let's dive in with social media. It's always a popular one, isn't it?
Okay, well, one I highlighted, let's bring this over here. One I highlighted was, should every company be doing reels or stories or some kind of video on a regular basis?
I would say yes to video on a regular basis, being an avid video fan, but I'm not so keen on the temporary posts. So over to you on that one, Ben, because I know you have an opinion.
I do have many thoughts on this. Video, absolutely. I think if you can find a way to use video, it really showcases the human side of your company. People get to know you, and that's really crucial, whether you're just one person on your own or a massive company. In fact, it's probably more important if you're a huge company. The problem I have with Reels, stories, or something like Snapchat, where you have these messages that disappear after a period of time, is from a marketing perspective, it feels like wasted effort because you spend a lot of time creating this content and it disappears. Now, I think that's kind of quite useful and good for personal messaging, to have that freedom just to create stuff and have it disappear, and not have to worry about building up this digital history, which could bite you in the bum later down the line. But from a marketing perspective, we're busy enough as it is doing the work that we do, particularly if you're a small company where you are your own marketing department. To then have to think about creating content that's just going to disappear is to me, it feels like wasted effort. So I'm always looking for things where you can create a video and then use it multiple times. I do think it's worthwhile for people, certainly larger brands who have a team and they can develop that brand recognition over a period of time, or influencers. So if you are someone whose sole purpose is to be online, be on social media, be in video, I think it's great. And I think I was actually looking at someone the other day on behalf of a client and I think their Instagram handle was "Does my bum look 40?" And it's a woman who's basically a shopping influencer. So she's looking at clothes and things like that, clothes and gin, looking at some of the videos. But hers is very much a mix of the traditional Instagram images and then stories, reels, and so on. So video. But I think it works for that, because for her, it's all about retaining and building a community over a long period of time. That is what she's doing. That's her job. So for me, that works. But when you're a smaller company, producing this content on a regular basis is hard. Unless the only reason I think my answer might be different on this, Claire, is if you are to produce content that is more narrative driven, a bit like this, it's just chatting, where it is more disposable. What do you think to that? So it'd be like if we recorded some of this initial conversation while we're setting up the club and sort of the informal chats we have, and we put that onto something like Instagram, where it becomes very, it is disposable in its nature. It doesn't really matter about us keeping it and recording it, but it might be quite interesting to see what we're doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that, Ben. I just think I think if you're going to go to the effort of filming, you want to be able to use it in lots of different places. I'm all about repurposing and eking out your content in lots of different strands. You know, give me one video and I can transform it into lots of different places. And you could put the effort to putting it into a reel, but I just feel it's a lot of effort for not necessarily a lot of return, unless you have a lot of followers and people interested. Otherwise you're just putting stuff out there and it's just disappearing.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you've got the option to keep these videos, so it doesn't mean they disappear. It just means on that particular platform they disappear, but still it does feel like you put a lot of effort into it. So maybe if it is slightly more disposable, but you can keep the video and then maybe put them together for a roundup. I mean, that can be quite fun, maybe, to put them as a roundup, put them on a different platform like YouTube, move them over, but don't do them in exactly the same way. Do them slightly differently. Yeah, I'm lazy when it comes to things like that. I don't necessarily want the easy route. It's not about how much work to put in. It's about getting the maximum result from the effort. It's why I prefer Pinterest over many other social networks, because the work you put in is useful ongoing into the future. Whereas things like reels and stories, it's
you can repurpose it later down the line if you want to revisit it. Whereas you can't necessarily do that if it's disappeared.
Yeah. Do you know what? It also when people have to produce content regularly, that feeds into how social networks want people to engage. They want people to be online regularly. They want people to be there live. They want people to catch that information straight away, be producing it all the time. And that falls contrary to how I want to use social media, which is I've got other things to do. And while I find social media both useful, fascinating, and interesting, there is also the side which will draw you into it. And actually, you can spend a lot of time on there. TikTok, amazingly good at doing it. YouTube Shorts, not too bad either. But I personally don't want to be spending that amount of time on social media. And I find it difficult to recommend that anyone produce content in order to allow to sort of hook other people into keeping them online all the time.
Yeah, you want to keep a healthy balance.
Yeah. I mean, I was listening to a podcast recently, and podcasts I love because they are recorded when it's suitable for the host and then put out on a medium that anyone can listen to whenever they want. And they were talking about how difficult it is for people to move from being a YouTuber to going on TV, and that different, you're moving from one platform to another because you've got your core audience. People know you want in one place, but when you move over to TV, when you move over to Netflix or get yourself a film or documentary commission, it's hard to do that. And one of the things they're saying when they're talking about that is that the problem is that YouTubers find is they have to be online all the time. They have to be producing content all the time. That's going to be the same for people on TikTok, producing this content all the time. And I just, and it's not something they enjoy doing generally. they actually have to work quite hard to do it. There are probably quite a few YouTubers who do really well and have a bit more luxury in what they produce and when they produce it. But apart from that, you know, everyone seems to be working really hard to create all of this stuff all the time. And I just wonder if it is really worth it. So I don't know, we're kind of falling outside of the marketing realm and into something a bit more about humanity and whether we should be having all of this information all the time, because sometimes our human brains just need a break from it, and we need to look at something green or blue or natural.
Something I learned a lot of years ago, and it was less is more. If you put the quality in and make it a quality product or a quality post, that will have more impact than this constant dross that you're sort of posting out there. So I think that's how I approach marketing, is quality over quantity every time.
That's obviously what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
Absolute quality over quantity. Okay. Hopefully that's a good answer. I'm just checking my notes to see if we've got everything there, but I think that was it. I think the key thing is focus on customers. I think if it's delivering value for your customers, then try and find a way to reach them. Hopefully that's not going to be by producing these regular stories and reels, and actually you can produce quality content at a pace that suits you. Okay, shall I pick one? What do we have here? Images. So there's a question here. How do I check if an image, if I'm allowed to use an image? And by that, what they mean is there are so many images that are available online, and a lot of people find them just by going to Google, typing in the phrase they want, click on the images tab, and they find an image there, download it to their computer and upload it to their website, or use it in a video they're creating. Naughty, don't do that. You can get into problems. I know customers who've got into problems, and sometimes it's cost them some money because they'll get a letter from Pick Rights or Shutterstock or a lawyer demanding a payment of a very high amount, and with some negotiation you can bring that down. The best thing to do, though, is not to get yourself in that position, and try and work out if you are allowed to use that image and in what way you can use it, because there are different rights that can be applied. Now, the key thing to know with images is that the moment someone has created an image, it's given copyright protection. You don't have to apply for it, you just get it. So if I were to scrawl something on a bit of paper, do a doodle, that's been given copyright protection. So if anyone were to take a photo and print it onto a t-shirt, I could legitimately take them to court and get some charge put against them on that. So knowing that, we then can say, well, every image has copyright protection. What we need to do is find if that image has then had additional, I don't know what you call it, but they've basically given additional rights to say how it can be used. Now, sometimes those rights are for personal use only. So you can use it if you've got a D&D group and you want to use that particular graphic as your on a flag for your character. Yeah, of course, that's fine. If you were to use that graphic on a t-shirt or in a board game that you're selling, or a computer game, or a graphic on your website, that's not allowed. It's for personal use only. So if you're making money from it, that's a no-no. You want to look for a commercial license. Now, actually, it might be worth going to a screen share here, because there's lots of different places to get images, checking from different license formats. So I'll just go through a few of those, plus a way that you can potentially check to see if you're allowed to use an image, but it's really difficult. So let's have a look at screen share and we'll go through it. So I think let's start with the first place, which is to check whether an image is being used online and where that's being used. So what I'm going to do is see if we can actually find an image on here that we can use. I know we've got some in our articles. I'm just going to pull it off an image and see if we can use it online. If we got something here. No, it's not coming up. Here we go. There's an image. So what I'll do is I will just clip that image. Now I know we've got this image from, but let's see if we can find out where it might have come from. So I'm going to use a service called TinEye. So it's tineye.com. And it's reverse image search. You can actually do something similar in Google image search. I just prefer to use TinEye. So if I just drag and drop my image in, what it will do is it search through its index of images that it's found by scouring the web. So here's my image, digital marketing. And these are the different places you can find it. Now, what you've got to be careful on TinEye is it shows you these sponsored links at the top here. So you might instantly think, oh, it's available on Shutterstock. Well, I've got to, I can't use it, or I've got to go and buy it from Shutterstock. That's not necessarily true. If we scroll down, so you can see these are sponsored. If we skip past those, we can see where else it may have been found. So it's on lots of different places here. So let's have a look on my web. Now this is all in French, so I can't really see on that one, for example. Let's try a different one. Oh, that's a sponsored, sorry. Let's try fashionawesome.biz. Yeah, looks like it's very spammy. So looking at this, it doesn't look like there are any key sites where that's being used. But I can find it. It is available on Shutterstock here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get it from Shutterstock, but it does give you an idea that perhaps we have to pay for it. We can see there's lots of different variations of it. Let's have a look and see if there are any more. Here we go. So Forbes have used it. So let's look at Forbes, see what they say, because that's a big publication. They're likely to say where they got it from. I have to accept those cookies. So here's the image. Right, 6 ways to grow your business with digital marketing, Stephanie Burns, deposit photos. So they've actually given attribution to that image. So that to me then says, actually, that probably is an image that needs to be, I need to check the license of it and make sure I've actually bought it. So what I could do in that case, if I want to use that particular image, I can see that TinEye recommended a couple of sponsored links here, Shutterstock, Adobe, and Alarmy. I've not heard of Alarmy before. So I could go along and just buy it from them. So that's one way of doing it, but it's quite tough to actually find out exactly where they are. What I'd recommend to save you actually having to find images like that and actually sort of reverse search where they came from is just to get them from known sources in the first place. And there's a couple of places I use for that. 2 free ones, or a couple of free ones actually, is Unsplash. A lot of people recommend this. I've not used it, but a lot of people recommend Unsplash for finding free images to use. The 2 I use are Pexels and Pixabay. Not Pixie, that's something else I was reading. Actually, that was another website I was reading early and researching this. It's got some interesting information on fighting image theft. In fact, this is a service, interestingly, that copyright holders, so the people who own the copyright to an image, can use to find people who are using their image and then auto-submit solicitors' notices. So these are people on the other side, but you can actually use their tool. I believe it might have it on here. No, there was a pricing system. You can use this for free. I can't find it now. I'll let you have a look at it. Look around the site. It's Pixy, Pixsy.com. But you can actually use this service to check online to see if the images that you want to use have been licensed or not. So there's a free version for that. But what I do is use Pixabay. So let's put that one in. Pixabay, there we go. So let's take Pexels for an example. And I want to search for dogs because I like dogs. So I've got lots of pictures of dogs, and it's got various different attributes at the top or keywords where I can refine it down a little bit. Maybe I want just horizontal images. And I just want large images because maybe we're going to print on it, or we're going to have it as a big masthead on a website. So anyway, once I found my image that I want on here, the good thing about Pexels and Pixabay is that the license they give you is non-commercial, and you don't, sorry, it is for commercial use, and you don't have to attribute it, which means you don't have to say where you found it. So if I click on free to use here, just there's little label down here, then it tells you what you can do with it. So it's free to use. You don't have to give any credit, although it's always, as they say here, nice to do so. And you can edit them. You can modify and edit them as you wish. What you can't do generally with these free services is actually sell the video or images that you get. So you can't create your own competing stock library and then start selling these images in there. Often some of them say you can't use them in commercial film or commercial broadcast production. So that doesn't include podcasts and it doesn't include YouTube. But if you were going to create a film and then use some photos or video within it, you might need to get special licenses for that. It's definitely worth checking. So the other thing with, if we go back to this, the other nice thing about these services is you can also get video on them as well. Now, Pixabay might help with that. So this is the other one. If we go into videos, let's look for dogs and see if they have any moving dog videos. Oh, they do lots. I've got a dog swimming there. Now, this is something you've got to be careful of. In some of these free sites, they have some images that are actually sponsored images. So you can see here, these ones at the top are actually sponsored image by iStock. And that's fine. If we really like those images or videos, that's great, but we've got to be careful because these we have to pay for and we have to get properly licensed, and they may also have license restrictions against them. So we've got to be careful with that. But down the bottom here, these are the free ones. So let's have a look at this video. Oh, what a lovely doggy. So you'll be able to download this video completely free to use, and you'll get the high quality version they've got here. Again, with Pixabay, free for commercial use, no attribution required, although it's always really good to do that. Claire, do you have any other recommendations of places to get free images?
I think you've covered it, Ben. That's the main places that I go to myself.
Yeah, a lot of people recommend unsplash.com. I don't use it. Somewhere else you can go is Flickr. Yes, Flickr still exists. So with Flickr, what I quite like about it is if you want some authentic photos, so they look quite genuine and real, if you go to Flickr and search for them, Flickr is basically a collection of photographers' images, personal images, some of which they allow to use for commercial use. And actually you can get some really good, honest photos on here. So I'll do the same search again, dogs, see what comes up. And we got lots of photos here. But what I want to do is select license. So I got to any license and then I choose commercial use allowed, or actually commercial use and modifications allowed, which means not only can I use it commercially to make money, but I can change it as well. And now it gives us loads of photos. So if we wanted photos of real dogs, you know, that look like someone has taken them rather than a professional necessarily, although there are lots of professional photographers on Flickr, then we've now filtered all of these photos so that we can actually use them. Let's take a picture of this dog here. And we can scroll down here. We can see who actually took the photo. It looks like it's another dog that took the photo. That's very clever. We can also check these specific rights. So we've got a little link here to some rights reserved, and we can find out what those are. Was there anything else I had on this to do with images? Oh yeah, one other place that we use, which is paid, but it's quite a useful resource, is Inventive Elements. So this is something we use with a lot of our, when we're doing client work. It's a paid library which we have a subscription to, which I think is quite cost effective. So again, we can do the same dog search in here. And we've got lots of lovely professional dog photos that might suit what we're trying to do. They also have video. They've got audio, so sometimes we'll use that with client videos that we're making. So there's actually a lot of content in here for quite a reasonable monthly fee. The benefit with this, which I prefer over other stock libraries, is there's no limit to what you download. With stock libraries like iStock Photo or Shutterstock, they give you a limit generally, or if it's unlimited, it's a very high price. So with this, what's nice about it is you can download anything you want for as many times as you want. All you have to do is when you download it, you have to apply like a label to it. So if I was to download this for our own blog post, for example, then I'd apply the label Rather Inventive Marketing. If it was for a client, then I'd give the name of the client, marketing or website, whatever project I'm doing. And the reason for that is it just helps them divvy up that subscription fee between the people who are using that particular image. Technically speaking, if I were to reuse that image for another project, I should just go in and assign that image to another project. It doesn't cost me any more, but it just helps divvy up the money, and it makes sure that we are covered in case that image is found to be used for a particular client. So it's actually quite a straightforward way to manage the licensing in there. There is quite a very simple license agreement sort of explaining how it all works, which I read through this morning. I even watched the video, and actually it's pretty good. So I definitely recommend, if you want paid images, Envato is a good place to go for a lot of images. But do try out these free ones first, Pexels and Pixabay. I think we've got everything there, haven't we? Right, let's go off and stop sharing for the moment. So Claire, over to you. You pick one.
Okay. Well, lately we've been talking about optimizing our images. So what happens when, or how do we do it? Or how do we control the images that are already published on our site? That was a question that we received recently. So Ben, what would be the best way to manage that process?
Well, it depends. It really depends on the platform, the website platform you're using. So we often use WordPress, and there's a couple of different ways you can compress images on WordPress that are already on it. The quickest way, especially if you've got many, many gigs worth of images, is to often download all the images. So we use FTP or secure FTP to look at all the files on the website, go into the WordPress uploads folder, take that whole folder, download it to one of our desktops. Once they're all downloaded, run them through a program called ImageOptim, which I'll bring up we'll talk about in a second. And then ImageOptim will basically run through the images, bang, 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 compressing them all down. And you can preset up the compression to whatever you want it to be. So if it's a JPEG, you say make JPEGs, compress them by 80%, or make them 80% compression, I should say. If it's a PNG, you could say just leave the PNG uncompressed, but take out all the redundant meta information that doesn't need to be there. So you've got some configuration options, but once it's set, it just cranks away in the background. The reason I like doing that sometimes for big sites is because we can take a backup of all those images first before we compress them. And then when we put them back up on the site, we can we can basically just keep the compressed versions up there. So that's one way of doing it. It'll compress everything. The other way is to use a plugin. And a plugin I've been using over the past year, which was really good actually, is called Smush. So what I'll do, let's go back into screen share and we'll have a look at those two. So let's look at the first program called ImageOptim. The ImageOptim. This is it. So this is available on imageoptim.com/Mac. They do have a web service that you can use, but I think that is for sort of linking in with other services. So other web services could use this image compression. So if you've got a Mac, go to the Mac app, download it. It's completely free. And it's as simple as the image is showing. It's just basically a window. You drag and drop your images into it, and it'll just crunch through them and compress them. And you can leave it going for hours and it will just be working its way through. So it's very handy for that. It even tells you how much it's compressed to what the saving is. So it says how many kilobytes have been saved or megabytes and what your saving is. I use this a lot to get an idea of what can be compressed on a site. So I'll often I'll go to a site's homepage, download a few of the key images, run them through ImageOptim, and that gives me an idea whether there's some further compression that can be made on them. So this is really useful. And then the other one is Smush. So for that, let's dive into the rather inventive site for that. See if we can get into the back end. One of the reasons I like Smush, here we are, is it's quite simple. It does a couple of things in a quite simple way. So first of all, it enables me to bulk smush. So I can, if I've just installed the plugin for the first time, it enables me to smush those images in one go. If you have the free version, it will put a limit on doing 50 at a time. So it'll do the first 50. And if you've got more, it'll stop and you have to refresh the page and then get it to smush again. So if you want the free version, you haven't got many images, you don't want to pay anything, it works quite well. It just means you're going to have the web page open and just click a few times and refresh the page a few times. But once it's done, Smush will then go into a mode where when you upload images, whether you're making a new post or a page, it will smush them or compress them when you upload them. So that's really useful. So it's a little bit of pain to begin with, but then it'll do it automatically. We have the pro version for many of our customers, and that enables you to have not only better compression, so it makes the files smaller, but also when you do the bulk smushing, you don't have to keep refreshing the page because that's a waste of my time. I need to get on with other things. The other key thing with Smush is it's got lazy load. So you've probably heard when Chris Richards comes on, he talks about getting images to lazy load. So not loading all images at the same time, allowing the page to load with only the images it needs. And as you scroll down the page, the images load as they're needed. That's what lazy load does. And Smush will implement that for you. So we put the free version or the pro version, depending on how people are working with us, on pretty much all the sites we produce, if nothing else, because it reduces the size of the images and we've got lazy load on there. So it works really well. There's lots of options, but I tend to use the default options for it. Just enable lazy load for everything. And on the pro version, make sure we enable Smush full compression. So that's what I would use when you've got a batch load of images that need compressing. There was another one I used, which I recommended to someone else. I can't remember. It was an online web version of was it called Tiny PNG? That's what it's called. Or Tiny JPEG, yeah. So Tiny PNG, Tiny JPEG. This is a web service where you can drag and drop images in. So I'll just give you an example from that screenshot I used earlier. Drag that onto the service and it will compress it. Panda goes, yay, and then we can download it. So this is good if you want to compress images on a image by image basis, but it's a bit of a pain if you want to compress lots at a time. Definitely get a Mac and then put ImageOptim on it. So that's just WordPress. If we're talking about Squarespace, well, that's a different matter. Squarespace doesn't seem to have any image compression built in. And if it does, it's not as compressed as ImageOptim can get it. And actually, Claire and I were working on a client site recently where one of the jobs was to compress all of the images. So it's really that question that was asked, how do you compress all the images if they're already on the site? With Squarespace, we had to manually download them. So Claire did that, manually downloaded all the images. I ran them through the compression and then we put them all back into place again. That was the only way of doing it. There's no way to see all of the files in Squarespace. So we couldn't just reach in there and grab them and put them back again. It was a real pain, but it made a difference. It made a noticeable difference in speed and also made the file size a bit smaller. So it was definitely worth doing, but it's a real pain. And so that's one of the reasons why we use WordPress, is because it allows us that flexibility. I'm not sure with the other services. Obviously, you've got Shopify, Wix, Weebly, and so on. I'd imagine they're going to be very similar, where the only option to compression is to download them, recompress them using a service like TinyPNG, ImageOptim, and then uploading them again. Okay, does that answer your question? Because I know that's you have that sometimes, that question on
Yeah, no, I think
compressing images.
you've covered that one.
Okay, shall I pick hosting? Because this is, I think, a quick one and actually relates to Claire coming on in a couple of weeks. So the question is, how can you check, or how can you get environmentally friendly hosting or ethical hosting, hosting that isn't going to burn up carbon in terms of just keeping your website live? Well, there's lots of different ways of doing it. There's one, I mean, we use the hosting company 34SP because they've got dedicated WordPress. Their hosting for us is dedicated to WordPress, so it's perfect. So from a security and speed angle is the reason we use it. However, they also are quite carbon responsible, and not only do their offices use energy that has come from renewable resources, but anything where they can't guarantee that it's come from renewable resource, they offset it. So they do plant trees and offset it as well, more than they need to. So all of our hosting runs on that system, and therefore it's green. Now, the way you can tell that without it actually being just something they say is that they're listed on the Green Web Foundation. So we've actually put a badge on the bottom of our website, which shows that. If I click on it, it will say that ratherinventive.com is hosted green. Slight difference on our website because we also use Cloudflare. So we use 34SP for the main hosting provision, and we use Cloudflare in front of that to speed up the website. So Cloudflare is a CDN, a content delivery network, and they sit in front. Cloudflare are also green. I didn't know this, but I do now. I didn't know this when we signed up to use them, but they are, and they're a very big CDN, content delivery network, and so they are also using green energy where possible, and then offsetting, or as they say here, compensating for the rest. But they are listed on the Green Web Foundation, and this is basically giving you insight into the hosting company that a website is using. I believe you can also do a search on here as well. I'm not going to search for anyone's site just in case it comes up in a bad way. But if you want to check if your website is hosted on a green supplier, then go to thegreenwebfoundation.org and pop in the website and have a look. So that's a way you can tell whether they're environmentally friendly. Whether they're ethical, that's another question. I think the best thing to do there is actually read their blog posts, call them up on the phone, speak to them, see how they, if they talk about how they treat their staff. Do they take their staff out on away days? How much they pay their staff? Basically dig into the company, because that's the only way of finding out whether they're ethical, is to look at how they treat people, what are their working practices, what are their supplier contracts like. Takes a bit of effort, but if you want to know that, you've got to dig into it. It's one of another reason we like 34SP is because they're always very happy to talk to you and always quite open and honest about what they're doing. So it's always worth speaking to your suppliers, whether it's hosting or otherwise, and just asking them questions about how they work, how they treat people, and also what their environmental policies are. It's something that, Claire and I will talk about. I mean, both of us are quite keen on that area and trying to be sustainable where we can, if not to prevent or save our pocket, if not the environment. But to be honest, I think they both go very much hand in hand. But something we don't talk about enough in terms of what we do on the website or elsewhere is the sort of efforts we're trying to make to be efficient. And to not use resources where possible, to work with the right people, so we are ethical, to be not carbon neutral, because we're not, but very low carbon, and really trying to, rather than just offsetting what we, all the carbon, actually trying to reduce it so we don't use as much. Even through just turning computers off at night makes a huge difference. Yeah, I think that answered the question. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Claire.
No, I think you covered that nicely. Well, it'll be interesting at the end of the month when we've got Claire joining us to talk about this in a lot more detail. So
yes, no, it will be definitely, because she's worked for, I mean, she's a marketeer, and one of her goals really is to work with companies who want to market themselves in a sustainable way, do good marketing, ethical marketing, do the right thing. And so, you know, certainly a lot of the companies she's worked for do that. Do you think we can slip in one more question, because we're coming up to 45 minutes here? We're at 45 minutes. What would you pick? You choose one.
What should we pick? Should we do video? What's the best program to simply make videos? I don't have much budget or experience.
I want to do it for free.
So, do you want to take that one, Ben? Because I use Final Cut, and that's
you use a professional package.
Yes.
It's not that expensive though, is it? Final Cut, is it £200 or £300?
It's, yeah, it was, I think it was about 250, and that was for Final Cut X a few years ago, and I haven't sort of upgraded anytime recently, but it's doing everything I want it to do, and I've got that for the sort of entirety of its life until I need to do upgrades, until they bring out a completely new program.
Yeah, and that's through Apple, so that's Apple's Final Cut by Apple, and I believe that once you bought it, they've just keep giving you upgrades and updates, and you don't need to pay for anything else, as you say, until there's another version. But I don't think it's in their interests really. With Apple, a lot of the software that they put out is to support the hardware that they've got. So you can only use their software if you have their hardware. That's how they get you. Final Cut is a very professional package. I don't think it's used to make sort of very high-end movies generally, but only because it doesn't fit in with all the other tools or expectations people have at that very high level. But that's incredibly high level. All YouTubers, content creators, a lot of those people use Final Cut because it's a very cost-effective package, especially compared to the Adobe suite. Is it still called Creative Cloud? I know we've got a subscription, but that you have to pay something like £45, £50 a month for everything. It's something like that for all of the products. You buy it as you buy it as a subscription package. Then you can use every product, and you know that mounts up over time. And so if you're really just doing video editing and you really want a powerful package, it is worth paying for something like iMovie if you have a Mac. But we're looking at low or no budget ones. So if you have a Mac, you will have pre-installed a great video editor, and it's one I use. It's called iMovie, and it will create you professional 1080p video. I think it does 4K video actually now, although I don't produce anything like that. So you can produce professional quality video in the video editor. It's very good. It's really good at creating simple videos, cuts. So you can just drag in a couple of multi-streams of 1080p video or 4K if you've got that and maybe a powerful enough computer. And you can just do really nice interviews where you've got the main conversation going, and then you can cut between different camera angles or different bits of video overlays. You can drop in music, you can do a voiceover in there, you can put titles in, you can put crossfades and all of that sort of stuff. Where I find it's limiting is in like the titles are they're not basic, but they're very limited in what you can customize. It doesn't really have much graphics capability. So if you need to produce any graphics, you need to do that outside and drag it in. And the controls are a bit broad. So you don't have very fine control over things. It's built for speed to learn and speed to use in a simple way. And the only reason I don't use Final Cut now is because I don't have the time at the moment to learn Final Cut. So for me, there's a big wall. It's not the cost, it's the wall of having to learn something different. So if you want something free and you've got a Mac, iMovie is brilliant. And I think it's gonna work for most people. You can also use it on the iPhone. You get iMovie for iPhone. You get iMovie for the iPad. And they work really well. They are slightly cut down versions of iMovie, but you can create some great video on there very quickly and easily. Apple also have another app called Clips, and they developed this to create Instagram video or social video. And what it does is create square video. So it's not just long video or wide video, it's square video. So it'll actually work on any or most social networks, really. And what's great about clips is the interface is designed for you just to either record video, so just record a quick clip and then record another clip just by holding down your thumb and then flipping the camera, recording yourself talking. It can do text-to-speech overlay as well. So you can create videos which people don't need to listen to the sound. You can pull in video and audio from different sources. It's got some fun overlays. It's actually pretty fun to use, quite quick. I was actually talking to an estate agent to see whether they could use it. You know, if they're doing a quick video of a house, they could just use clips just to record quick clips of the house and then put a little narration over the top while they did it, and then output that video to YouTube. And they could do that straight from the app, or they can push it into a social platform that they're using. So that's clips. Other video editors, there is a free one called Shotcut. That's for PCs. Now that is a bit of a beast of a video editor. I think that's something that's more iMovie-like to Final Cut-like. So if you want something that's going to give you a professional output, Shotcut could be a good way of doing that on a PC. I've not used it myself, but it has been recommended by a few clients. So that's something worth looking at. And then, I don't know, other video editors. I know we had Jonathan Pollinger on a couple of sessions back talking about TikTok and how that has a really good video editor. Now, at the moment, we're experimenting with TikTok. We're going to see how it goes. I'm not doing it. I've actually tasked my 13-year-old son to take some of the clips that Claire produces and make TikTok videos. So we'll see whether that's going to work or not. I don't know. But I've asked him to use the inbuilt video editor within TikTok to see how we can generate those clips. But Jonathan said that's quite good. A lot of people like using it because it's got a lot of good features. And you may notice that a lot of people will make videos in TikTok and then export them elsewhere, Twitter, Instagram, places like that. And you can see because you've got the TikTok logo on there. Other than that, I don't know if there are any other video programs. Have you got any? You're just Final Cut, aren't you? You don't use anything else?
Yes, I'm afraid so. I'm a Final Cut snob. But I think once you start on a program, and I've trained in it, I've done it for so many years, it comes naturally to me. It's a bit like Photoshop. I won't use any other program but Photoshop because I've trained in it since I was 15. So I know the program, and I don't want to change or go into a simple.
I would highly recommend Pixelmator, but no, you know what? I used to know Photoshop really well. And there's something nice about getting to know it. You know all the keyboard shortcuts, you know where everything is. And then something changed. I don't know what it was. Maybe I fell out. I was using other programs, and then I found it really hard to get back into Photoshop. And I think at the time we didn't have a subscription, so the cost was there, that big wall of cost. And so I got Pixelmator and started getting to that, which I love now. But we're not talking about image editors. Yes, I think one area I don't know much about is Android video editors. I don't know what's available on Android. The only Android I have is this very old HTC for testing various websites and apps that we work on. But no, I don't have any idea what Android people might use apart from TikTok and Instagram apps.
Yeah,
but yes,
I couldn't help you with that one either.
So my core recommendations: if you've got a Mac, use iMovie. It's really good. If you've got a PC, Shotcut I've heard is good too. If it's a mobile device, iMovie, or use the native video editor built in. Okay, that's it. We're coming up to the hour. I think we should end it there. We've got loads more left over. We'll keep that for another grab bag another time. But if anyone's got any questions for us, do send them in. And if we don't have time to incorporate them into any of our normal webinars, then we'll put them in a list and we'll get round to them. Claire, I'm going to leave us now. I hope you have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week. So to everyone else, we're here every Friday from 10 a.m. We cover everything from in marketing, really. SEO, strategy, video, everything really. If you have something exciting to share, let us know. Email support@ratherinventive.com, and do come along. But if you can't, and you can't watch live, share the Zoom link with a friend. They're more than welcome to come along. They can come along in your place. It would be nice if you let us know, and then Claire can welcome them on. And don't forget, all previous webinars are on Basecamp. Thank you very much for watching. Have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you all next week. Bye for now.